When I was a chef, I used to like shout, throw pans, and I opened YouTube and I just starting to look at it. Oh, this is how you make that. Oh, this is how you make sushi. Can you manage 3 restaurants without you being in one of the restaurants? How can you go 3 locations at the same time? The quality is starting to drop. Here problem, human dynamic problem, and then paperwork. It was like
that story sounds made up. It's so crazy. It's just like
that was the key of opening up.
Teddy, welcome. It's great to have you on. We're excited to hear a little bit of the story of Maki Ramen and some of your other restaurants. So just for people who maybe don't know about Maki Ramen or don't know about all your other sites, which even I'm learning about for this conversation, just give me a snapshot of like what the business is and where it's at kind of right now.
So right now, well, thanks for having me. Thanks. So right now, Maki Ramen at about 6 shops, 6 restaurants around Edinburgh, Glasgow. There's one small takeaway in Manchester as well. I forgot to mention. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it is. There's some sub-brand that we can talk about later. Also. Yeah.
Great. And so what kind of food do you serve? Obviously Maki and ramen, but yeah. Just tell me a little bit about what
Actually, not many people know of this Maki Ramen. So Maki is sushi and ramen is a soup noodle, basically. Yeah, so I combine these two. So if you go to to Japan, you will find actually each of the restaurant will only sell one item, which is, if it's a ramen restaurant, will sell ramen. If it's a sushi restaurant, will only sell sushi. When a lot of the restaurant here, they combine everything together, so they call it izakaya. When I just took 2 of the main item, which is sushi and ramen, and then I just build a brand around it.
Do you want to just talk us through the story? Like, how did this all happen? Like, where did this begin? How did you just go for it from the beginning?
From the beginning. Okay. I start with some background. I was born in Israel. My parents went there to do restaurants, so they work in a restaurant. Mostly all the the first immigrant, you will start with restaurant or kiosk or something. So they are in the restaurant industry. My uncle, my parents, everyone. And then when I was 22 years old, I moved to UK. This is when I got my working visa and I started working here. I work for Jimmy Chung's, which is like a buffet restaurant, Chinese buffet. It's quite well known. And then I got my permanent visa staying here. So then I decided to like go and try to like open my own restaurant. I was searching for different shops. It took me a while, but meanwhile I was working in different as an industry, like as a chef de parties, which I get to travel to work in different kitchen. I work in a Malaysian restaurant, and then I partner with my father-in-law to open Kampong Ali. And then I found this opportunity in one of these small shop around the corner of Edinburgh Uni. And then I took that over. So this is when 2015, this is all start. Yeah.
And so now, Teddy, you've got, I think just before we started, you say there's about 12 outlets at the moment within the overall business, 6 of them in Maki and Ramen. So one of the things that we noticed was that there's quite a concentration of, you seem to have quite a lot within a small geographical area. What's behind that, out of interest?
I think it wasn't planned. It was just, walking by and then I saw a shop for sale to let, and then I just call out. But there wasn't like, at the beginning, I didn't plan I didn't have all this vision and this. So 6 Maki Ramen, 2 Ikigai Ramen, which is another brand of ramen, Hope Omniritsu, which is more like a grill, more like a fine dine, I would say. And then a Meat Fresh, which is a franchise. Macau Kitchen, which is my friend that he really wanted to have his own restaurant. So I said like, okay, let's do something together. And he's Portuguese, so he's doing something Macanese, which is kind of Portuguese, Asian mix. Yeah, so that's pretty much all it started. My dad always told me when you build a restaurant, it's all about location. So it is always in the city center. Don't open something that is slightly outside and then it's in the somewhere that no one actually can see and stuff like that. So it's all pretty much in the city center. It's like dot 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 dot.
Yeah, because I think that's just quite interesting because there is that element where, from someone who's never run a restaurant, no clue, I'm kind of shocked to see them. Like you drive on the bus and it's like Maki Ramen, like there's like 3 in like a stretch of like nothing. I just think that's really intriguing that it can still make financial sense to have so many restaurants nearby. So it was planned, or is it just sort of like, oh, there's one that looks.
There is this good example. I opened my first Maki Ramen, and then after a year later, I opened the second one right across the road. So then I say, well, there is no way that there is so many Maki Ramen in there, or there is no way that there is another sushi or another ramen in there. So the first opening, I was doing something completely different than Maki Ramen. It wasn't a success. And then when I bring back the ramen, the same ramen, it was full. So I can see that, oh, okay, so there is a demand. So basically there's more demand than I expected. And then the third one, there's more. And then the fourth one, and it just, Maki Ramen introduced the ramen to Edinburgh. It's not just say that there is no ramen shop beforehand. It was. But we actually showing them, everyone saying ramen is Maki Ramen. So it's always being like, 1, 2, 3.
You've got that association now that if people want ramen, they come to you, right?
Yes.
Excellent.
And even Maki, because we always say Maki 1, 2, 3. So this is the number of shop. So Maki 4, we know the location. Maki 4, this is how we discuss internally. And if someone say anything about Maki outside, I always relate that Maki is Maki Ramen, but Maki is actually the sushi roll, so it can be everything. Yeah.
And tell me this, then, Teddy. You I think you've said before that you're from a cooking catering background, but actually you didn't necessarily know how to do sushi and ramen.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes,
do you want to tell us a little bit about that? Because I was intrigued by that admission.
Okay. So I was studying, because I wasn't in a academic side, so my school was pretty much F grade, and I didn't finish 12 years school basically. But so I started working when I was 16 in a restaurant. So either it's front or back and forward, different restaurant, Italian restaurant, tapas bar, and so on. And then my father had a sushi restaurant before. He was opening the first sushi restaurant in Haifa in Israel. But I was very little, so I didn't really touch that. And then when I first when I first opened Maki Ramen, it wasn't like I wasn't trained. I was working in this industry for like 17 years before, but I wasn't really specifically working on Japanese restaurant. It was more like foundation of restaurants, management, front staff, and then also different type of kitchen, but mostly Western kitchen, and then Chinese, and then Malaysian. So then when I had to open Maki Ramen, I had to play a lot with the proper ramen and how to make the sushi. I have a sense there, but I didn't know. I would say like 3 out of 10 for Japanese restaurants. So I opened YouTube and I just starting to look at it. Oh, this is how you make that. Oh, this is how you make sushi. And then I just put it in there, and then I just starting to make. So that was my first initial. I just really wanted to open a restaurant, and doesn't matter what was that. So that was the first like few weeks until I realized that, hey, that's not going to work. I was making like £200 a day, which is like barely pay me and pay the staff. So then I started to hire some sushi chef, some as a Japanese chef to help me with. On my second shop, I decided to like close it for a month. It was 6 weeks. I traveled to Japan, and I just did my sushi academy, so like a course of the sushi from scratch, basically from the rice to the sushi, everything, fish and everything like that. It was a very, very good trip. It was really worth it, basically.
So you had a core background in restaurants, but then you chose to effectively niche into the kind of
Yes.
food that you're now selling
Japanese
in real volume, right?
Yes.
So what was behind kind of taking that as a, because I guess that's a risk. You're going into a cuisine that you don't necessarily have experience of at that point in time. So what is it that kind of made you, and how? What about this learning? You know, you said that you went onto YouTube and you learned just as you were watching. So how did the learning process actually happen for you?
So why Japanese? First of all, I really love Japanese food. Like that was my first choice every time when I go out to eat. That was my first choice. It was now it's not anymore. But it is. So I eat a lot of this food, so I'm very familiar with this food. It's not something that I never done it before, never seen this before. And because of the chef background, it will be a lot much easier to look at the YouTube, and then they give you the ingredients, and then you just mimic that. So it's like a home cooking that you have ingredients and you try to mimic that. But if you have 17 years chef background, it will be a lot much easier. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so you picked it up largely from YouTube, and then you went on a more formal academy to learn.
Yes.
And also recruited in more experience as the business grew, right?
Yes. Yes.
But I guess that's the food side, though. And obviously, the food has to be good. But then you're like restaurant 1, restaurant 2, restaurant 3. Like you grew really quickly. So what was the story of like you trying to keep up in terms of trying to run a business? You know, you've gone from like, you know, was it YouTube? What did that kind of business acceleration look like for you?
It wasn't YouTube for sure. I think that there's this growth mindset of me, hardworking. So I was, you know, when you're in this industry for 17 years, and I worked like 6 days, 10, 12 hours a day, no problem. When I opened my first restaurant, I even worked 16 hours a day because I have to do the prep and then saving the money, not hiring too much, and then, you know, and then finishing, cleaning up, and then there is some prep continuously being done. So it's 16 hours almost every day. There is a different stage that when I look back now, there's a different stage that I went in. So say, for example, stage number 1 will be more like, how do you make the food? So you controlling the quality, and then the service itself, and then the speed of the food that is firing out. But later on, there's this second stage that you management, that you manage 3 restaurants without you being in one of the restaurants. Because this is very difficult. You say, I'm good at making sushi now, I'm good at making ramen, but then how can you go 3 locations at the same time? So you're starting to like hiring, you manage, you train, and then there's the third stage, which is like you don't even need to manage. Like before it was like manager and then me. So I'm like consistently talking with the manager. Now it's like manager and me. There is a middle ground that I hire. We call it the senior manager, which is they are the one that actually communicating with the manager, and then my COO, Michael, will communicate with me. So I'm basically only one person that I talk to. And then we have the area manager, the marketing, the HR. So it's this grouping up, and then it's just getting bigger and bigger. So this is more like the third stage, that you will do less in terms of operation, but then you manage more. You look at numbers, you look at, you know, more communication. Yeah.
And how did you find that process then? Because as you've gone from effectively being the technician, actually doing the prep and the cooking, now to being almost only having Michael as your key point of contact with kind of the business. So how was it for you as you start to let go of a lot of these responsibilities that you previously had?
Yeah. So time-wise, it wasn't like, okay, today I decide to let go and I let go. It was let go, no. Let go, no. And then 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and then, okay, I let it go. Some of them, I think that the senior management, they are very proactive as well. So even I don't let go, they're starting to take part of my job. And then by the time that I realized that, there was, hey, what am I doing here? So, and it's cool because then, you get into this next level that you like, that you can go on expansion and stuff like that. I think what the lucky for me is I have this proactive management that actively looking for something to do, looking for improvement. And that's something that, I just realized that a lot of people are doing one thing, part of the restaurant, the company. If they were specific in one part, they will do a lot much better than me try to do every part, like marketing and then hiring and then making a new menu. And yeah.
And so how have you managed to attract people like that then who are proactive and can start to take things from you? What's your secret?
I don't know. I really don't know.
But you must have done. You must be doing a lot right to get those kind of people.
Well, I think it's me also that I was always actively doing things. I was always, growth mindset, let go things, and then managed to do. I think the coaching a lot does really, really help because when I first met Alan Smith, I didn't know all that. Like, I don't have this planning of like opening so much restaurant. It was just like a snowball. It just opened. But then there was a point that I was like, damn, I'm very tired. Where do I go tomorrow? Which shop do I go? It's just I cannot manage this. There was a lot of rumble when I think shop number 4. I starting to rumble. I starting to like the quality starting to drop, and then there is here problem, the human dynamic problem, and then paperwork. It was and then I was like, nah, I'm not touching it. So then when I talked to Alan, he's starting to structures more like the business itself. So I didn't know the business side. I was more like the technician side, which is cooking and stuff like that. But then the business side was more like, okay, so this is how you do, this is the cubes, this is the boxes, and then this is how you fill it in. And then you're starting to think a lot much wise, basically. Attracting people. I'm very passive in terms of like hiring. The people mostly come to me. And then I just give them a small project, and then if they say, well, if they deal with this project with good, so I give them a slightly bigger one, until they burn out. Okay, and then when they burn out, I take it back, and then I just like, okay, I give you a slightly smaller project, and then this is how I play with. And then later on, the senior management was like, okay, give me that. So then
But it helps now because of your size and people recognize you. So people come to you, but surely right at the beginning, you were kind of a nobody.
Yeah.
They're one shop.
Correct.
You didn't have people banging on the door.
Correct.
What was that first hire like?
I think it's more like leadership inside me, but I don't know how to explain that. It is just something that people following people because they have some kind of leadership or something that they done right at the beginning. I just don't know how to break it down into like, what is that my team will follow me. In fact, when I was working in the restaurant with them, there was more people are following in terms of like they're more trustworthy. I think that's because I'm physically there with them when now I'm in the office. So you will see the lower ground, the bottom actually starting to like rumble and starting to leave and see that company is no longer Teddy Lee. It's just a company with numbers. So sometimes it's remind me a lot that I need to go back to the shop and then just work with them from time to time. Yeah.
So I like the way you describe, going back to this idea of how you delegate and kind of give people a little project, then how do they cope with that? Give them something bigger. But also, for me, I'm looking at that from the point of view of just that idea of everyone needs a level of pressure in order to perform, and we're trying to find that optimal point. Yes. And I think what you've demonstrated in that story is just your nimbleness that just says, I'm always looking for that balance point that says, right, if I've put too much on someone, how do you then take it off so that they can still get back to a good level of performance? I really like that. And I'm also interested in what you're describing about, people following you and your leadership. So there's some things that you're doing. What would you describe as your way with people then? Let's talk about that. Because, how many people are in the business now?
Right now is 180.
180 people.
180, yeah.
Do you know?
180, so it's on off, but yeah, 180.
It's a big team that you've got. So, and I appreciate you've got managers in there, but actually, what's your approach with people, and what's working? Because you might be looking at it and think, I don't know what to do, but actually, you're doing stuff that really is working, that attracts so many people, good quality individuals. So.
Okay, so I quite calm down. So I quite calm. It because I've been through a lot of things that I seen them, and then if that's happened again to the manager or something, and then I just handle that in a way that not shouting, not yelling, not punishing, those kind of things. It's like, okay, no problem, sit down. This is what you're gonna do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, just execute it and it's fine. So a lot of actually the problem that happened in the past. Okay, so we have the EXO, which is the health and safety. When they're coming over, there are certain things that we need to do, and then when a new manager coming, they never approach that kind of problem. Then so he's shaking, and then now we have system in place and everything, but beforehand it wasn't a system. There wasn't a system. It was, you come, you check, but then so the new manager is shaking, and then so I need to drive over and then just try to solve the problem. And then when they write me a list of things that you need to do, you need to fix, you need to do that. So then, okay, there you go. That's your list. This is how you fix this. That's your contact. And then there you go. In terms of like a lot of mistake that now even the senior management is making, instead of like telling them verbal warning, written warning, next time if you do that again, you're gonna be out. It's not like this. It's more like, okay, this is the mistake. That's already gone. So that's something that we cannot fix. But then what we can do to make it better. How can we, the circle of influence and circle of concern. So how can we fix the things that we can fix, and not the things that is already been broken, basically. Leadership style, it's more like fun. I like do things fun. So say, for example, there is a flood in a restaurant, and everyone's scooping this kind of like stirred water. So, well, that was hard work. That was smelly and everything. We closed the restaurant. Okay, guys, let's go. Let's go eat something. Let's go have a party. Because if we open mostly every day, we really don't have the time to gather together, like as a team. So, okay, let's go. And then, have a meal together, have a laugh, and then have a drink. I tend to turn a lot of bad things or bad news into a good news, because I don't want them to feel bad as well, even if it's their mistake. So I try to like get them and then turn it into party instead of like something that is ugly and difficult to deal with.
And have you always been like that then? Is that just...
No, not always. Not always. When I was a chef, I used to like shout, throw pans, and
really like Gordon Ramsay.
Yeah, some not like that extreme, I would say. Yeah, but this is how I trained as well. So when I was like 17, 18, the chef, yell at you, which is kind of like common things. If you hurt yourself, if you burn yourself in the oven, you don't oh, stop, I need to put something in there, I need to rest, I need to take a sick form and go to doctor. You don't have that at the time. It was you continue to work, But nowadays it's slightly different. You have a lot of like it's called the life balance and a lot of protection and stuff like that. There, if you cut a finger, you cannot work for 3 days, and those kind of things. I cut the entire finger and I continue working.
So yeah, I guess it's around culture, isn't it? It's
it's
like
culture. Yeah.
it's building that culture of it's more like alongside. Let's go. Let's do this together, rather than Teddy sitting in his office at the top of the tree and just barking orders. Yeah. So yeah, that's really interesting. Have you got just to kind of summarize? Have you got a life business kind of thing that you live your life by? A motto that you run business by. What would you say?
One of the things, growth mindset for sure. Like all the time thinking about how to grow, not only number of restaurants, but more like the mind as well. How do you think more wise? How do you learn more? So when I first approached as Alan was when I had 3 or 4 restaurants. So I have 4 restaurants. I feel like, hey, I'm making money, I'm happy, I'm doing well. But still having a coach next to me, because I don't look at that having like 4 restaurants and that's it. I'm looking at a lot much bigger picture. So I need people to help me and open my mind, and then read books and audible, and going to a lot of events to just open the mind. Yeah.
And you mentioned books there. Go and give us a book that's been instrumental in your development as a business owner.
For business, definitely the E-Myth. As a 4 hours a week. This is when I learned how to leverage things rather than like everything doing myself. I can actually use leverage. Who That Rich Dad this is my very first book of personal finance. Atomic Habit. Changing 1% better, because it's very similar to Kaizen. Kaizen is a Japanese word of how do you take something, a process, you cut it into small pieces, and then you saying, okay, I improve here 1%, improve here 1%, improve here 1%, and then they do that not as one line, but they do it like a circle. So you actually circle that, and then you put 1% better in each of the small box, and then you continue circle that. So that's Kaizen. So there's a lots of books that.
What would you say, Teddy, has been your luckiest break in business? Where you've just got lucky?
I think the entire thing is lucky. It's so there wasn't like I didn't come to from my background or from my vision that, hey, I'm going to open this Maki Ramen and it's going to be that big. There wasn't any vision of that. It was just literally step by step. I just want to have a restaurant. When I was 17, I know that I want to have a restaurant one day. And there you go, boom. In fact, I had 2 the restaurant beforehand, but it was more like a 6 months, and then it shut, and then because I didn't know what to do with this, but I learned a lot anyway. So there are a few things that is come to me without me asking. So the first one was the first 6 months I opened, no profit. Then there's a Japanese TV show came, and is air in Japan, but then they came to take the video. The show was like 45 minutes, one of this kind of entertainment show. Anyway, it was a stupid entertainment that is actually pushing the brand down. But I don't have a brand that time, so I don't care. But it's actually create a lot of interaction, basically. So this is when I see from me making £300 a day to £600 to £1,000 a day. So that's one that is come to me with the TV show. Second one is I watched a documentary movie called Jiro, the Dream of Sushi, which is like a sushi document. This is when I realized that, the sushi need to be made this way. And then after that 2 weeks, I was in Japan. And then I doing.
So that was the Netflix documentary about this guy who'd committed his life to perfecting the art of sushi,
yes,
right?
Yes, I wasn't that much perfection, but it shows me that sushi need to be this is the right way to do sushi. Let's go to Japan and see this, and then let's go and learn this. So 2 weeks.
So you saw it, and then 2 weeks later, you were actually on the training course.
On a plane. But this is more like a proactive action. But the movie was bought over by a customer. Oh, you should see this. And then it was in a CD-ROM. It wasn't like Netflix. There wasn't Netflix.
Oh, I see.
It was in CD-ROM. And then Come Dine With Me also approach us. So then when I say yes, and then, okay, let's do this. And then, so then the brand image also getting bigger. Michael, COO, Effie, marketing, they all started like as a part-time. And then they see the potential of the company, they propose something, and then so they actively asking me, would you like me to do this? This is what I see, the problem. Would you like me to solve this? And then I just, yeah, and then they're solving it, so it's done, So the marketing wasn't that active until shop number 5. Actually, shop number 6 was the real money putting into the marketing. But beforehand, it was just me taking a picture with my phone, and then with the wrong spelling, I always spell it wrong, and then I text it out and post it. So everything is like a big. Well, it's lucky, but because of all the active action that I'm doing, then or the right decision that I'm doing, then it's nowadays Maki Ramen. Yeah,
it's interesting you say active action, and I think that's one of the things that in you spot the opportunity and then you act quickly. Yes. And so it kind of snowballs from there. So I remember you and I kind of speaking about almost slowing down. Just the 90-day plan was to say, look, let's not open another restaurant in the next 90 days. Just slow it all down. Do you remember that?
Yes, I remember that.
Great.
And then the next day it's like, hi, Alan. Sorry. Sorry, I just opened one.
Yeah, that was brilliant.
Yeah. St. James's Quarter, though,
yeah.
I mean, that must have been quite a big gamble.
Yeah.
I can't imagine it's cheap in there. And you have a massive, big one, right in the middle of the food court. Like,
yes.
What's the story behind that?
That was very big. So COVID, 2019, I opened 3 restaurants. So I just realized I spent so much money on that on 2019. 2020, April, that's the COVID started. So everything shut. And I spent all my money. When I look at during the COVID time, I was like, I went all in all the time since 2015. All the money, every single pennies I earn, and then I build. This is when the COVID stopped me. And I say, hey, wait a minute. Where's all my money? Oh, it's in the restaurant. But okay, what do I do now? I don't have. And then during the COVID time, I had like my very last bullet. This is why I say to the team, I say, that's my last bullet. And they know that because they have access to my bank statement and everything. So instead of like the team saying to me like, okay, I'm going to, quit, and then I'm going to find another job and I'll leave you there and you go and die. Instead of that, they taking a proactive action and saying, okay, we can do this, we can do that, we can do that. This is my last job. And then, so we managed to not making money, but we managed to survive during the COVID. Now, this is when St. James Quarter come in. St. James Quarter there wasn't a space for me there at that time. There was a tiny little space on the side, but I didn't really want that, and it was very expensive. Yo Sushi was pulled out from St. James Quarter, and that was during the COVID time. So they pulled out, and then I have a perfect spot that I really, really wanted. And then we say like, okay, let's go for that. But where's the funding then? Where's the funding? Because this is just right after the COVID. And I called my brother. My brother is a professional poker player. So we always have this kind of like chunk of money here and there. He's like, do you have any spare? I was like, yeah. And okay, that's good. And then, this is how everything rolled. And St. James Quarter was the key of opening up to all other shopping mall around UK. because apparently I didn't know that, but shopping mall actually choosing brand to be there. It is not just random brand, or if you want to be there, you come. It is more like branded in. So, and St. James Quarter wasn't looking for like international brand. He was looking for more like local brand. Right now we are kind of like number one around all the restaurant in terms of the size. So, I mean, number one sales in the whole St. James Quarter.
That's crazy.
In terms of size.
Wow. So only came on board because Yo Sushi didn't go in.
Yeah.
You got that opportunity, and then it was Manchester next, is it?
Manchester next, yes. Manchester this year, I think maybe May, April, May, and Leeds coming up, maybe August, July.
That story sounds made up about your brother. It's so crazy. It's just like, it's just crazy.
Was that made up?
Do you have any spare money? Oh yeah.
It's like, oh, my brother just happens to be a professional poker player. It's just so like those are the cool stories. You know what I mean? It's just like, wow, that's amazing.
Well, my brother didn't help me actually in only St. James Quarter. He was the first Maki. And then I just realized that during this time, he was supporting me without actually asking any questions. I was like, hey, get a 10K, I get 10K. You guys get a 20K, you give me 20K. and I haven't paid him back.
I'm sure he gets free ramen from you.
Well, Teddy, thank you so much for coming on and chatting to us, finding out a few of the stories and finding out the story of Maki Ramen. And good luck as you continue to grow.
Thank you very much.
Very good. Thanks, Teddy.
Thank you.